This video is going to be my reaction to the Ravens' 41-10 win over the Broncos at home in Week 9, a game that really illustrates the depth and the wide array of skills and talented players that the Ravens have on offense. Some improvement by the defense, I think. They definitely got the benefit of the doubt a couple of times on two of those fourth down stops, one of which could have been a touchdown by the Broncos in the first half. The initial one was a great stop, I thought, by Roquan Smith and one of the safeties to fill. They scored 24 points in a row late second quarter to early fourth to take over. The Ravens just did really whatever they wanted to. They bullied, finessed, out-executed, outsmart a Denver defense that had come in holding opponents to 15 points a game and only 4.4 yards per play. That last number, 4.4 yards per play, was number one in the NFL. This one was extremely reminiscent of a game I talked about in the preview this morning, the Lions' 42-17 win over the Broncos late in the regular season last year. The margin for error is almost precise by comparison, but the level of physicality that Denver was not ready for is the part that reminds me of it the most. And the credit that Denver was given, and Sean Payton coming into the game, overly so in my opinion, and particularly by Romo during the game, just fawning over what the Broncos were able to do defensively. Meanwhile, they're getting gashed at the time he's talking them up. Lamar in the first half was 11 of 12 passing and 2 touchdowns, both to Zay Flowers, who finished with, I believe, 5 catches for 127. Derrick Henry added 100 yards, I think specifically 107. Gets him above the 1,000-yard mark for the year in only 9 games. Truly unbelievable. He scored 2 touchdowns as well. Broncos are able to get to within 17-10 late in the second quarter. I believe we held them to a field goal after it was 17-7. And then Lamar and the offense took off. They hit a gear that no one could match. And certainly not Bo Nix and this Broncos team couldn't match it. I think it kind of speaks to all that we need from this defense as well. Certainly there's larger points to be made against better teams, specifically the Bengals that will play at home on Thursday. But we got a couple of stops in the second quarter and held them to a field goal late in the third quarter, and bridging or moving across those possessions by our defense, our offense absolutely whitewashed them. We don't need our defense to hold people to 12 points, and they're not going to do that. I just don't think they have the level of coordination at this point. We just need them to make occasional stops and give our offense a chance to change the dynamic of the game, and they certainly did. Look, here's our drives to make it 24-10 and then stretch the lead to 38-10. So this is after the Broncos had pulled within 17-10 on a field goal. We go 11 plays, 70 yards, touchdown to make it 24-10 at the half. That was Flowers' 53-yard catch. He broke a tackle, sprinted up the right side. I think it was Johnson with a block downfield, but I could be wrong. Maybe it was Tylan Wallace. First possession of the third quarter, 10 plays, 70 yards, touchdown. That was the drive. We had a 27-yard screen to Henry, really nice design. So many guys out in front. He almost took it to the house. He almost fell down over his own feet. 2 16-yard completions to Andrews and Flowers, and then we capped that one, if you recall, with the beautifully set up 3-yard touchdown to Ricard. Here's why I like it so much. That one made it 38-10, by the way. Here's why I like that one so much, because we ran up to the line quickly, and we lined up in unbalanced. Well, that's what we do oftentimes in short yardage or goal line situations to run the football. And we did so in order to throw it to Ricard out in the flats. It was wide open. Like I said, that one made it 38-10. During that time, we had our second consecutive stop of Denver's offense. They during the third quarter, had 6 plays for -2 yards. We get a really nice punt return by Tylan Wallace. I think it was a wall punt return, to be honest with you. And we cap it with a field goal that Tucker snuck in along the right side. It seemed like we were trying to get Henry 100 yards at that point. This is the drive that bridged late third quarter into the fourth. Suddenly it's 41-10. And the Broncos, I tried to go back real quick and watch it. I think I have them for like 2.5 minutes of possession in between when they kick the field goal to pull within 17-10, and when they finally get the ball back in the fourth quarter and they're suddenly down 41-10. Incredible performance by the offense. The defense had moments where they played well, and they did some good things. They certainly struggled at times as well. I think that's just who we are at this point. If we can, against good football teams, if we can find ways to limit or hold people to field goals and get the occasional 2 stops in a row, I think that affords us the best chance to win against the higher level opponents that will face at least the better teams than the Broncos. Those fourth down stops today were crucial. It was an improved performance by the defense. I have to give them credit, begrudgingly, to be honest with you, because it's been so difficult to watch them this year. The reality is the Broncos were not able to deal with the level of physicality of our offense. Our chunk plays, we just continue to produce 10-yard plus plays against everybody. At halftime, the Ravens had 12 first downs on exactly 23 offensive snaps. We were at 9.6 yards per play at the half. Just a huge switch from what we had been told or what had been talked about early in the game, particularly by Romo, about this Broncos defense, allowing, I believe, at the time, the third lowest points per game in the NFL at 15 coming in. And on the other side, the Ravens were averaging a league-high 7.1 yards per play, even after what I would consider an average to slightly above average performance against the Browns last week. We certainly left points out on the board if we catch the football, points out on the field if we catch the football. I think we can score 31, 35 points against that Browns defense, and certainly they got whitewashed today by the Chargers. What the Ravens went out there and did today against the Broncos, 395 yards of offense, 7.7 yards per play. Actually, I think it pushed down to 7.3 after the final possession where Josh Johnson's in the game. Kind of skewed data there, if you ask me. We also had a punt early or mid fourth quarter when Lamar was out. He finished 16 of 19 passing, 280 yards, 3 touchdowns, 2 to Flowers, 1 to Ricard. Sick game by Lamar, not just from an efficiency standpoint, but also I thought there was 3 times where he escaped pressure to create offense against a Broncos defense that really doesn't have the depth to match up with us, in my opinion. Yeah, they did have the one early sack, and they came into the game with 30 of them. And that another quarterback hit, that was it, at least in terms of dealing with Lamar in the game. This was really what the team needed, fan base needed as well, myself included. But this is what the roster needed going into Thursday Night Football against the Bengals. 2 games in 5 days. To not have to fight to get a win here, or even really compete with the offense in the fourth quarter, going into the Thursday Night Football game on the horizon, I think it's important. I'm going to reflect back on a seminal moment in a lot of ways for Lamar's development and for this offense. 2021, if you recall, when we go down to Miami and lose to the Dolphins, essentially it's the Sticks Blitz Zero game. 5 days earlier, we had to fight to beat the Vikings 34-31 in overtime. Lamar turned in an amazing performance. I think he was impacted in terms of his output, his effort level, and energy they had to expend. He threw the ball 41 times, 27 of 41 passing. He had 3 touchdowns passing, 2 interceptions. He was sacked 3 times, and oh, by the way, he ran for 120 yards, the game's leading rusher, on 21 carries. He was absolutely Superman that day on a late Sunday game, in fact, when we had to go down to Miami 4 days later. Now, fortunately, we're at home for both of these games. My reason for drawing that comparison is with the difference in this offense is today we have Derrick Henry, Zay Flowers, Mark Andrews. Justice Hill has a huge impact every week when he gets opportunities, that is. He didn't get enough last week against the Browns. Credit to Stacey Van Diver in the Discord for pointing that out during and after the loss to the Browns last week, that Justice Hill could have played a big role. Nelson Aguilar had, I think, a 27-yard catch in the first half. Bateman had 3 catches, including one important third down to give Tucker a closer field goal opportunity, and we need to do that at times on those 3rd and 8s. Just get the ball closer to give Tucker a more high percentage chance because he's all over the place right now. Now, Bateman did have a drop on a really nice setup from Lamar where he kind of pump faked twice, escaped out of there to the right, probably could have scrambled and got the first down, flipped it out to Bateman. He's got to catch that football. The crazy thing is Isaiah Likely didn't have a catch today, not one, on 1 target. Lamar only had 4 rushing yards, and we only, to my knowledge, called 1 actual option play. It was the speed option in the second quarter. A big mistake by Henry who went the wrong way. Lamar gets tackled for a loss. That's what messes our rushing stats up for this game because I think it goes down as like an 8 or a 9-yard loss. The Broncos, this was eye-opening. I think Cortland Sutton gave us issues. He had 1 catch near the end of the game where he almost scored, so he finished with 7 on 10 targets. But otherwise, the running back Williams had 2 catches, one of which was on the screen. Troy Franklin did have a 19-yard catch. No one else really had an impact. They got big wide receivers, first of all. Sutton, Little Jordan Humphrey, who's not aptly named because he looks like a tight end. I had trouble with the personnel groups. He looks like he's like 6'4", 6'5". So they've got a big receiver group over there, which I think is interesting against some of the other teams they're going to match up with. This dynamic today was too much for this Broncos team, and just the polar opposite for what we have done in the past when we had a Thursday night football game. We took over late second quarter into the early fourth, and we were able to coast. Now, in terms of me relating it to last year's game against the Lions when Denver came in, I think Denver had come into that game in Week 15 last year, winning 6 of 7. And so much people were still, at that point, not aware of how good the Lions were, especially offensively, and thought that Denver was going to go in there and kind of right the ship, or at least show everyone who the Lions truly were. It got flipped on its head. 42-17, Lions ran for 185. Today, we didn't run for 185. As you see on the screen, we only ran for 127. Again, Lamar, I think, has like an 8 or a 9-yard loss that kind of skews it a little bit. Romo had to pivot quick in the third quarter. He spent a lot of time talking about the Broncos' defense in the first half. And even after halftime, the setup to our third quarter dominance, he's talking about the Broncos' defense. And I'm sitting here like, we're averaging 9.6 yards per play. Even if you take Zay's touchdown pass away, we're still averaging 7.9. We're still doubling almost their yards per play allowed for the year, they being the Broncos. It did look, admittedly for Romo, it did look competitive in the first half. I thought, to be honest with you, he was just trying to sell viewers on sticking around to watch. It's like, hey, Tony, we're Ravens fans and they're Broncos fans. We're probably not going anywhere. We're probably going to watch the whole damn thing. The first half for our Ravens fans, for me at least, was somewhat difficult to watch despite the offensive brilliance that pushed us to 17-7 and then 24-10 leads. We almost remind me of like a bad Quentin Tarantino movie where one scene is so horrible that it almost looks intentional. And I've suspected that with a couple of his movies where it's almost like I want to see how bad and how ugly we can make these 2 or 3 scenes. And then we're going to follow it up with something that's brilliant, that's funny, got great dialogue, and like the main character lands a knockout punch or kills somebody that you want to see eliminated. That's what this Ravens team is like. And obviously I'm talking about the defense being the poorly, almost intentionally below par scenes, and then the Ravens offense being the ones that are fun to watch. We're up 24-10 despite being outgained through 30 minutes, which is unreal because at that point, like I said, we're almost averaging 10 yards per play, and we only had 24 rushing yards. Nonetheless, Henry's able to finish with 107. We had multiple guys play a role in the first half. Justice Hill with a screen. He had one called back. Another nice run, I think, for 8 yards. Zay Flowers, multiple big catches. Rashad Bateman, a big third down catch. Give us better field goal range like I talked about earlier. Lamar was just really sharp. He seemed to be floating 2 or 3 passes with touch because he knew exactly the space that was going to be afforded to guys. I'm thinking of the throw to Aguilar. There wasn't much on that one, but it seemed intentional. And then the one to Andrews in the third quarter as well. Henry was bottled up to that point. The screens were effective. We had ran 3 of them, 2 successfully, and one of them a third one got called back. That wheel route to Justice Hill was perfectly placed by Lamar. Great touch, great accuracy, clearly, against an outside linebacker. I thought that was a big moment. We need that wheel route. I think we need that wheel route in to attack teams' boundary side inside linebackers when they want to play man. At one point, we scored touchdowns on 3 of 4 possessions, making it 24-10. The third one was sick, the 53-yard touchdown to Flowers. I mean, he is having an amazing year so far. Lamar finds him up the right hash, like a deeper in cut, I think. Flowers breaks a tackle, bursts all the way for the touchdown. At that point, we've got 221 yards of offense on only 23 plays. And my notes said, we want to possess the ball for longer in the second half. But clearly, I did not know that we were going to be absolutely dominant on our 2 possessions coming out of halftime. And the Broncos, basically, offense fell apart. Bo Nix to the halftime point was 12 of 20 passing, 159. He caught the touchdown over top of Marcus Williams, who for whatever reason couldn't make a play on the ball. It was a reverse pass, I guess, Philly from Cortland Sutton. Broncos had 229 yards of offense in the first half, 4 of 8 on third downs, but the 1 of 3 on fourth downs. And I think they finished 1 of 4 overall for the day. 1 of 5 on fourth downs for the day. I thought it was a poor decision by Nix to throw that slot fade to Troy Franklin. Yes, he was open. I don't think it was 5 yards of separation like Romo said, but he beat Millette. There was clearly a lot of separation. It would have been a long field goal, though. What I'm saying is, on 4th and 4 from the 34-yard line, I'd like to see an offensive play call, a concept that would give Bo Nix 1 or 2 or 3 options to throw it. Slot fade is generally that's your throw. There's no other built-in complementary read off of it. All the other routes are designed to force it to be a one-on-one when you know you have man coverage. The Broncos did score on the 4th and goal from the 1 yard line. The reverse pass, like I said, it's a great catch by Nix. He's a heck of an athlete. I don't know why Marcus Williams isn't able to challenge it. Credit to Williams for peeling off with Nix and recognizing the play. He's not able to get his feet under him. Broncos did settle for that field goal late in the second quarter to get within 17-10. Really wouldn't have mattered if they got the touchdown or not with the absolute explosion that we were able to put out there on the scoreboard in the second half. Nothing seems to really bother this offense other than pressure on Lamar. If we can protect Lamar consistently, I don't know what teams are going to do against us. Now, now the problem is the really good teams that we're going to face, the Chiefs particularly, they can pressure the quarterback with 4. They can get after us. They can beat us. So what that means as far as trade deadline stuff, I don't know. Me personally, I would like an improved offensive line on the right side. One thing to note here about Denver going no huddle so much. I think that's a clear sign that opposing teams look at us as somewhat unprepared and incapable of making adjustments on the field. I'm not saying Zach Orr can't make adjustments. I'm saying no system has been put in place for players to make adjustments. When teams go no huddle, it does seem to have an impact on our defense. So it did work to an extent, but I also thought that the Broncos lengthened the game, made the game longer by the possessions being quicker. So much less time being taken up by their possessions. That they would need to score. They basically, I thought, gave themselves a lower percent chance to win the game by going hurry up, kind of a cutting off your nose to spite your face situation. Really, I think it illustrates how much talent we have on offense. Other teams know, okay, we can do this to take advantage of their defense, but we could be hurting ourselves if we don't score touchdowns because they're going to. Denver did, I think, finish in the first half. They were 20 for 67 in terms of rushing. They only finished with 122, but it took 30 carries to get there. And in fact, there was a scramble by Nix, I think, in the fourth quarter, and then Estime, the running back from Notre Dame, had a pretty good run in the fourth quarter as well, somewhat inconsequential. Nix, I believe, finished 19 of 33 passing, 223. Clearly, he's very athletic, willing to take off if nothing is there. Broncos go to Kansas City next week, so it'll be interesting to see in that road test, a second road test in a row, how they fare and what the Chiefs do against them. I'm trying to watch that game if I can. Ravens, we get the Bengals in the rematch of that classic 41-38 win in overtime in Cincinnati. We did have defensively improved effort. I thought some improved clarity. How much improved? I'm not sure. I don't know what you think. Feel free to let me know in the comment section how much better you thought our defense played today versus other games. We're facing a different type of quarterback, number one. Number two, it's fair to look back and say if we catch 1 or 2 or 3 of those interceptions against the Browns, the outcome is probably different. Obviously, the one by Kyle Hamilton, he dropped in the fourth quarter in the final 2 minutes of the game. We had 4 sacks today, 2 by Tavius Robinson, who played well, 1 from Trenton Simpson. Trenton Simpson had 9 tackles. I thought was very active. He did lose. I think it was him who lost the running back in coverage on third down. I believe it was in the second quarter. Nix kind of scrambles out to his right, like a 3rd and 5, 3rd and 6, and Simpson leaves the running back. I think it's Simpson because Roquan blitzed. A couple of guys in our Discord were pointing it out. Nonetheless, I think Simpson's playing well this year for us. That element, that dynamic, losing running backs, particularly into the boundary, I feel like it's happened 2 or 3 times this year. Kyle Hamilton had 10 tackles. I don't know if the defense has improved enough to make a big impact against Cincinnati. We can't go into this game having to score 40. We can score 40. We're fully capable of doing so, absent turnovers. I don't know how a team holds us under 30. It's going to be difficult to do. You got to get pressure on Lamar like the Browns did in many instances last week. Denver wasn't up to the task. Their pass rush wasn't up to the task. Neither was their coverage element. They were not physical taking on blocks. I feel like we wore on them eventually. But credit to the Broncos defense. In the first half, they held us to 24 yards rushing, kind of skewed a little bit by that option play that we messed up between Lamar and Derrick Henry. fun game to watch once we got to the third quarter, for me at least. You let me know what you think. And I realized, okay, we're going to get the win here. We just got to get these guys, particularly Lamar and Derrick Henry, out of here healthy. I was a little surprised that Derrick Henry got a carry with like 7.5, 8 minutes left in the game. It's over at that point for me at 41-10. I thought it was over at 38-10. But, we got an extra field goal and then got a stop, which really made it quite obvious, and we were able to get Josh Johnson in the game and finish it off. 6-3 does not feel great to me. 7-2 would feel fantastic. Still within striking distance of the Chiefs. We're not there, unfortunately. We blew that game to the Browns. A win against the Bengals next week, does it, for you, make up for that loss to the Browns? As negative as I have been this week about our defense and about that loss to Cleveland, I think it does. I think a win against the Bengals, getting us to 7-3, even though we've got tremendous talent, I think we're one of the most talented offenses in the entire NFL. Regardless of what you think about our receiver position, the collection of talent that we have on offense and the gigantic potential that exists every time Derrick Henry gets the football, I think pushes us over the top of everyone in the league in terms of the capability of our offense. I think we can reach ceilings that no one else can, including the Chiefs when Patrick Mahomes is at his best, including the Bills with Josh Allen, including pretty much every offense in the league, the Lions myself that I cover myself extensively. I don't think they have the same ceiling that we do. The collection of talent, the depth and width of talent at wide receiver, tight end, running back, and then we're going to add Keaton Mitchell at some point soon. I hope it's not against the Bengals. I'd like to see him completely healthy. Would it have been great today to see Keaton Mitchell get some carries late in the game or even be sprinkled in occasionally throughout the second and third quarter? Of course. He's capable of taking the ball to that. He's a unique talent in the NFL, if you ask me. He's a Tyreek Hill at running back if he's completely healthy. Hopefully he is completely healthy, and that's one of the reasons I would advocate for holding him out of the Bengals game, making sure that he's totally 100% before we put him back out there on the field. To me, I think he's only been through 4 practices, maybe 3. But you may have different thoughts on it. We all selfishly want to see him on the field and see him succeed because he's such a unique talent and such a dangerous guy with the football in his hands. Let me know what you think of some of my thoughts that put out there. The direct comparison that I am making to Detroit's 42-17 win over a very similar Broncos team last year in terms of they were surging and build as a team that could come in and take us out, whether we're the Lions or the Ravens fan base. Appreciate you guys' time, man. Let me know what you think of the video in the comment section. If you think other Ravens fans would enjoy this reaction video with some of my thoughts related to how the Ravens were able to get this done in such a one-sided fashion from late second quarter onward, then please consider grabbing a link to this video, sharing it out on social media to help this content get more reach.